Now, let's try to work out the case study for your business. And I don't know what your business is. It can be anything. You could be selling widgets. You could be doing a local service, whatever. You can sell to universities, to businesses, like B2B.
This video is brought to you by EpiPies Academy.
So how do we start thinking about it? Well, the first thing we think about is your customer. You have to get to understand the customer really deeply. And of course, you have to answer many questions about it, but the key question, how do they shop for your product? Do they search for it on Google? Can you rank for it on Google? If you maybe cannot rank for it on Google, or additionally, if you can add the secondary sales channel like Amazon, eBay, Udemy, whatever you're selling, I don't know, if those large platforms are a fit. Because usually there is some giant website that exists for selling some product or service. You can sell it on your site, sure, but you can also sell it through those platforms. And the platforms have their own pros and cons, and your website has its own pros and cons. But your job is essentially to get the most out of each. And you just have to evaluate what's realistically available for you. And of course, if you're after sales, which most small businesses, typically that's the number one priority. A lot of people ask about ads. Ads are really hard to make profitable. So I wouldn't rush into them, and I'd make sure that whatever you're promoting is highly converting. Like you got your copywriting right, you got your design right, you have the right authority, trust, all that, so that the ads actually work. For some businesses, they're an option. For some, they're not. It's hard to tell, but you should evaluate if it's right for you. And of course, for every business, there's different kinds of ads. Amazon ads, YouTube ads, Google search ads. So you kind of have to look at it deeply for what works for your situation. And then for some businesses like B2B, in some cases, you need direct sales, actual outreach. Just be careful not to spam, because unless you are doing B2B sales, there probably are better ways to sell your product than just outreach, because a lot of people perceive it as spam, and there's a limit to how much you can do it. So these are typically the sales strategies. In addition to sales, you have your branding and authority positioning. One of the common things you can do is try to get mentioned in big industry publications in whatever industry you're in. But conversely, you can also have your own show, right? Does it make sense for you to have a podcast, YouTube show, a regular live show? For some businesses, it makes sense. For some, it doesn't. You don't have to, because having a show is actually a lot of extra work. So you should only get into it if you're really going to do it. But if you are going to do it, it's going to become a source of your branding and audience building long term. And you should think like, should you be on social media for the audience building? Because a lot of people, of course, they enter social media with hopes of selling, but it's really to keep your audience in touch and facilitate them and make them a stronger and more engaged audience. And in your case, you should think like, does this make sense for my situation, or do I have higher priority things to do? And of course, there's like content creation. Should you have your blog or regular podcast, or maybe even offline like events or workshops, or even educational things like books or courses? Does it make sense for your situation for, number one, using that as a lead generator, but number two, generating revenue on its own? And of course, don't forget that customer support, and the quality of your product is your branding, it is your marketing. So actually put a lot of effort into that, because that's going to pay for itself many times over. So these are the points that if I was to build a marketing strategy for a new company, I would mentally kind of check them off, and go through them and see what makes sense for a specific situation. What can I do? How do I prioritize? And usually you want to prioritize a few things that are most effective, and drop most other things just because there's no resources for them. And you want to give the best focus and the best effort to the most effective things. And that's usually a key to marketing success.